You never really know whose life you'll end up saving. And you never know who might end up saving yours. On a cold Tuesday evening, in a parking garage lit by the glow of police sirens and fear, a single dad named Jake made a choice most people would run from. He didn't hesitate. He didn't think twice. He saw someone in danger, and he sprinted straight into gunfire. What he didn't know was that the officer he risked his life for was the same woman who had humiliated him earlier that afternoon. Before the chaos, before the shots, before the blood, there was only pain neither of them had ever spoken about. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps our channel Kindness Diaries continue spreading real stories of courage, humanity, and the power of kindness. Jake Miller wasn't the kind of man who liked drawing attention. He worked quietly, lived simply, and raised his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, with a gentleness that made up for every hardship life had thrown at them. He worked long hours as an auto shop mechanic and delivery driver, trying to hold life together after Emma's mom passed away. Money was tight, stress was constant, but Emma gave him purpose. Every night when she wrapped her arms around him and said, "You're the best daddy ever," he felt that maybe, just maybe, he was doing something right. That afternoon, after picking Emma up from school, Jake stopped by a grocery store. He only needed a few items: milk, cereal, and Emma's favorite frozen waffles. They stood in line behind a woman in a police uniform. Officer Lauren Hayes. Officer Hayes had a reputation. Tough. Strict. Zero patience for excuses. She carried the weight of her job like armor. Emma tugged Jake's sleeve. "Daddy, can we get cinnamon waffles instead of regular?" Jake smiled. "We'll see what they cost, sweetheart." But when he reached the register, his card declined. He tried again. Declined. The cashier sighed. The people behind him groaned. Emma's eyes lowered. And Officer Hayes shook her head and muttered under her breath, "Some people shouldn't have kids if they can't afford them." Jake froze. The words cut deep, sharp and quick, like they were meant to wound. Emma looked up at him, confused, hurt. Jake swallowed the lump in his throat. He removed the waffles from the counter. "It's okay, baby. We have food at home." Officer Hayes didn't look at him again. She walked out as if nothing happened. Jake didn't know what was worse, the embarrassment, or the fact that Emma had heard every word. They left the store quietly. Jake never complained. He never defended himself. He just held Emma's hand a little tighter. On the drive home, he whispered, "You're all I need, sweetheart." Later that night, after dropping Emma off with a neighbor who sometimes watched her, Jake left for his second job as a nighttime maintenance worker. He was sweeping the lower level of a downtown parking garage when everything went wrong. A shout echoed through the garage. Then a gunshot. Jake ducked behind a concrete pillar as police lights flashed at the far end. Officers moved in, shouting commands, taking cover. And then he saw her, Officer Hayes, down on one knee, gripping her arm, blood streaming between her fingers. Another shot rang out, hitting the ground inches from her boot. She had no cover. She couldn't move. The suspect had pinned her down from above. Jake's heart pounded. "Stay back," an officer shouted at him. But all Jake saw was a human being alone and bleeding. Even after the humiliation, even after the words she said, even after all the judgment, nothing in him could leave her there. He dropped his broom. And he ran. Sirens wailed. Bullets sparked against concrete. Officers yelled for him to stop. But Jake didn't hear anything except his own voice whispering, "She's somebody's daughter. Somebody's family." When he reached her, she looked up in shock. What are you doing? Get out of here." "Come on," he said, wrapping her arm over his shoulder. "You're not dying today." She tried to protest, but pain stole her words. Jake dragged her behind a pillar just as another gunshot exploded behind them. Her breathing trembled. Her hands shook. And for the first time all day, she didn't look like a hardened cop, she looked like a person hanging on by a thread. "You saved my life," she whispered. "Why?" Jake didn't answer. Not yet. He pressed his jacket against her wound, holding pressure the way he learned years ago when Emma's mom got into an accident. More officers rushed in. The gunman was subdued. Paramedics took over. But Officer Hayes never took her eyes off Jake, not even as they lifted her into the ambulance. Before the doors closed, she grabbed his hand. "Come with me. Please." At the hospital, after hours of surgery and stitching, she asked to see Jake. He walked slowly into her room, unsure what to expect. Officer Hayes blinked back tears. "I owe you an apology," she said, voice shaky. "I judged you without knowing anything about you. What I said today, it was cruel. And you still saved me." Jake didn't speak for a moment. He wasn't angry. He wasn't proud. He just looked tired. "People have bad days," he said quietly. "But kindness can't depend on how people treat you. Kindness is who you choose to be." Her eyes filled. No one had ever said something like that to her. "Do you have kids?" Jake asked gently. She nodded. "A teenage son. I became a cop to protect kids like him. Somewhere along the way, I think I forgot how to be soft." Jake smiled, not judging. Not blaming. "Soft doesn't make you weak," he said. "It makes you human." The next day, as Jake prepared to leave, Officer Hayes insisted he wait. A woman entered the room holding 2 grocery bags, milk, cereal, and Emma's cinnamon waffles. Officer Hayes smiled. "For your daughter. And for you. I can't undo what I said, but I can start with this." Jake was speechless. It wasn't the food that touched him, it was the sincerity. Before he left,